Welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And yeah, I'm sure that we're going to have a quiet evening tonight. What with New Year's yesterday, everybody doing serious recovery from all of the important partying that went on. So we're going to start in with a gentle live. Emily van Wyk, welcome. I hope that you are in fine and fabulous form. And as we get going, I'm going to remind everybody that on this channel we have just one rule, and that is don't be rude. If you are rude, we give you the boot. But that said, you are welcome to have any and all opinions that you like. You can agree, you can disagree, as long as you're polite about it. You can comment as much as you want and are indeed encouraged to do so, seeing as comments make this work. And of course, like, because likes are free. So give lots and lots and lots, and share and subscribe. We could do with some new subscribers for the new year. So for our first start on the weird and the wonderful, I'm going to be following along with something which came up in chats with guys in the last thing. One of the standard people that like to follow on our channel pointed out that he wanted to build himself a survival kit and what have you. And we were talking, in fact, about monster hunters and more. And this is a bit of a sort of multi-topic thing, because we're going to start with looking at the kind of things that might be worn by monster hunters and hunters in general, and how it's changed over history, because there's some interesting stuff to talk about there. And we're going to see into the problems with survival kits that I think very often don't get talked about, largely because it focuses all on having the kit and not very much on the realities thereof. And I think, to be honest, this came out of an interesting comment that was made by somebody which I totally disagreed with from my own experience, both being out hiking and camping and what have you, and being in the military. And that was that the idea of a spice kit in your gear is laughably stupid. Well, I can tell you right now that when I was out on the border, I actually saw physical fights break out over things like flavorings, because, I don't know, maybe in some countries you get the best of the best and everything is gourmet, 5-star, wondrous stuff. But at least when I was out there, it certainly wasn't. And the idea of being able to get just a little bit of something nice to improve was a major deal. So yeah, I think it's the little things that make survival possible, actually. It's really not what you think. So we're going to go through a whole lot of different stuff just for curiosity and interest, and how things have changed and why it may or may not matter, and how things have become different in the modern age, and in many ways I think a lot better compared to how it was. So we're going to start with the idea of the hunter's clothing. That's a different take on things. Hey, Byron, welcome. So I think you will find that that's a bit of a difference, because people don't talk about it so much. We're all worried about whether or not you've got the biggest weaponry or anything like that, but clothing is absolutely a basis of pretty much everything. And hopefully as we get through to the bits further on, those that asked the questions will have joined as well so that they can get an answer, because I did say I would do a bit of research on it. To me and just me, how's it? Welcome, welcome, and Happy New Year to everybody. We are indeed in the new year. Thank you, K-Man, for the likes. I do appreciate that very much indeed. Shakila, welcome. I hope you're in fine and fabulous form. So, historically, both real-world hunters of dangerous animals and the legendary figures of people that perhaps hunted cryptids and things that were less real, be they hunters of werewolves or vampires. And of course these people did exist. Whether or not their quarry did is another question entirely, but certainly the people existed, as we know from the Gavignon werewolf hunts in France, which were pretty damn cool. So over history, certainly things worn would have been fairly durable and for the most part reasonably practical. We know with Otzi, for example, he had very interesting clothing which was layered. And that's a key point in any kind of outdoors, which we are going to find is pretty critical. Layering matters, because it's all very well to sit at home and say you've got to have this and that and the next thing to protect and what have you. But in the real world, weather changes, temperatures rise and fall, and it's sometimes not always practical. We know, for example, when the medieval knights went to fight in the Crusades, they very quickly realized that their very effective armor suddenly wasn't. Full plate mail in Middle Eastern environs means that you will cook yourself. So right away they discovered that, sure, it gave you great defense against some things, but it really, really didn't work. And that was kind of important. So going right the way back, we see that those who were considered to be the greatest hunters in ancient and prehistoric times very often got their gear from the very things that they hunted. Animal hides, leopard, lion, crocodile, etc. Crocodile was a big favorite, natural armor, furs and things against the cold. But interestingly enough, woven grass is very effective as weatherproofing, as well as quite strong and resilient to help protect you. Tree bark and leaves to make a kind of camouflage as well. So they were quite inventive, which is pretty damn cool. Protection from the elements is as important as protection from the predators. And interestingly enough, you often found that in warmer climates, less is more. And the ability to keep going in the heat means that you wear a lot less. But decoration, of course, status has always been key. And you find that right through history. In very early times, they had the bones, the teeth, and other things, and body paint and more used for ornamentation or spiritual protection. So clearly that's been a thing right from the beginning. We know that when you got to the medieval and early modern era, it got a lot fancier with richer fabrics and decorative elements. Very much attention paid to things like your footwear, and very light armor, especially for large and dangerous game. and then the relevant weaponry that would in fact influence what kind of clothing you would choose, because spears, which are probably the best, oldest and still most effective hunting weapon, requires a fair bit of maneuverability. Bows and crossbows as well. Bows, especially the arm braces and such, required to be able to shoot them repeatedly without harm to yourself. And of course, this led into your modern world, where you would have your fancy materials like Gore-Tex and more, which obviously made a huge difference. Waterproof, moisture-wicking fabrics, often with bright outerwear for visibility to other people, breathable type waterproof boots, and so on. Things which are far better than the original stuff, much lighter and more effective. But we know that still there is a certain amount of decoration involved, and you see that turning up in pop culture as well, with influence from games and more, such as your traditional robes, hats and talismans and all the rest of it going in. But the key themes that we take away is that, for the most part, adaptation matters. Clothing matches environment and danger level, but it's a balance between. While extreme armor would be very useful against certain things, it's not always wise to wear it because of environment. We do know, for example, that they did come up with some pretty funky things. So bear armor, for example, was literally spiked plate mail, so that you couldn't be grabbed and hugged by the bear, which is a crushing tactic they apparently use. So you looked somewhat like a porcupine, but yes, apparently it really did work. I don't know that I would want to test it myself, but yeah. We know that the material science has changed, and in certain ways the original stuff has remained very popular. We know that leather, which was definitely the prehistoric choice, has remained to this day often a very useful choice. Though we have our advanced synthetics that can achieve a lot more and a lot better. I was talking to a friend the other day that was a policeman for a great many years, and now is an expert in self-defense and all of that kind of thing. And he commented that the police boots that they were issued initially were a canvas boot, which were much lighter and much more breathable, and nobody liked them because the leather army boots, which basically looked much the same, were much more effective and more protective of the feet and far more comfortable. So yeah, though there were advantages in some ways to the modern police boot, they just weren't as good as the original leather army boot. And they actually then went back to it. So that just goes to show. Now, in terms of iconography, certain items are used for either signaling purposes or affiliation. So bright colors, so that other people who might also be hunting around can actually see you. Bearing in mind, many animals can't see those colors. We might wonder why tigers are orange until you realize that orange is not a color that shows up to deer. So while you might see the tiger in the bush, the deer will not. So in fact, their bright orange is useful, and hunters use it exactly the same way. Of course, there are also affiliation things. So as we know, wearing of crosses and such for monster hunters, and indeed for the Crusaders, showed affiliation. So in many ways in the modern age, we do much the same with logos. We show our affiliation to things with that kind of stuff, which is sort of a throwback. Perhaps it's a human psychological thing, who's to say? But interesting nevertheless. Now, adventure and clothing gear, how it's changed over the years. Materials is where it's really made the biggest change, and fashion, because while to a fair amount function mattered more than fashion, that hasn't always been the case. In the very early history, of course, function was what really mattered. Animal hides, furs, and woven plant fibers mattered. In Arctic and Pacific Rim, indigenous peoples used materials like treated bear and seal intestines called kamlaika, which made a waterproof outer shell. And reindeer and seal skin, which is very waterproof, as you know, for their boots and pants. So waterproofing mattered, and there's some very interesting kamlaika where literally they've taken about an inch or 2 inch wide strip of intestines and then sewed them all together into a thin over jacket, which then keeps your underlayers from being able, from getting wet, which of course in very, very cold environments is very critical. Now in the modern day, of course, we've got much better materials for doing that, but it's doing exactly the same thing, which goes to show that the idea remains, while materials may have been improved, the basic idea of layered clothing, especially against the cold, matters. We know that when the focus is purely on survival, heavy and durable materials like thick wool and canvas matters. Nowadays, with much more modern things, we can go thinner and lighter, but we do exactly the same thing. And you find certain things have remained nevertheless. So we still consider a good wool sweater or jersey to be the top in warm keeping type stuff. It's always been that way, and it hasn't changed a very great deal. One great change that was used was the outer layer of gabardine, and for those of you who don't know, gabardine is a special weave made of wool, which essentially is both quite water resistant, at least, and nowadays we do have better things, of course, but very tough, and therefore it protected the underlayers. So an interesting thing there. Early gear was always multi-purpose. Tools were simple, and that's something which this is leading up to when we get into the whole idea of survival, is that modern kits are just way too full. You need to remember you've got to carry everything. So less is definitely more, and therefore multifunction matters a great deal. In the Victorian ages, to my vast amusement, adventurers pretty much wore a three-piece suit because that was what you did. It was just made out of tougher materials, but it was the same, and many of them still had a necktie and all. It was tougher on women because no woman ever would wear trousers. It just was not a thing. You wore a dress. So of course, for those who were the adventuring type, they had a tough time. So we can be very glad fashions have changed in the modern ages. So with a blend of practicality and the period style, safari suits and sturdy trousers of canvas or cavalry twill and leather boots, but still very much in the style of the day, which I got to admit from my perspective in the modern day looked fairly ridiculous. But, well, fashions are fashions, and I think all fashions are a bit ridiculous when viewed from out of the time where they're popular. I remember growing up, one of the greatest fashions of all was a sleeveless half t-shirt that was hugely popular and fashionable, and looking back on it now, it was probably one of the ugliest forms of fashion I've ever encountered, but is what it is. Back in the day you had your iconic pith helmet for sun protection. They really were quite ridiculous in a great many ways, but they were the fashion and they did work. So there was that. You had the leather helmets worn by pilots, which were good but not great. There's better versions in the day. Gabardine, as I say, which was invented by Thomas Burberry in 1879, and it was used for jackets, tents, and all kinds of things. Very hard-wearing fabric, breathable and waterproof. So excellent. And of course, wool, as we know, especially if it was mercerized, as they called it, for underclothes and mid-layer, it was absolutely prized for its durability and insulating properties even when wet, and still today is very, very hard to beat. Expensive nowadays as well. We know that Abercrombie and Fitch and Burberry began supplying high-end gear to famous adventurers like Theodore Roosevelt. Yes, he was an adventurer. Ernest Shackleton, of course, and Roald Amundsen. So it was also, of course, your hype of the day. So absolutely, and it worked. It was good stuff. Mid-20th century saw the synthetic revolution, which was a very interesting thing, and you had things like polyester and nylon, a fabric that was created between two scientific labs, one in New York and one in London. So that's why it's called nylon. Did you know that? Which offered lighter and more durable options that dried quicker, and therefore proved to be amazing. In the 1960s, Gore-Tex was invented. It was a major breakthrough for breathable waterproof materials, which made a huge difference, because it's not just keeping water out, but it's allowing the sweat to wick away. And layering systems are again now very, very critical. Your base, mid and outer shells are standard, because by having multi-layers you can adapt your gear to the environment far more efficiently, and that really does matter. And of course we see this now with the modern companies like North Face, Patagonia, and Columbia. And there is, of course, a great deal more interest in the outdoor leisure, hiking, skiing, and climbing. And possibly one of the greatest inventions ever is a material that can stretch up to 200 times its size and still return to its original shape. And I speak, of course, of Lycra, which is warm, especially when made in the hot version, and yet fits just about everything. And of course these days women are allowed to wear trousers, so they also are able to do all of the good things, and because it's flexibility, it adapts to whatever positional movement you're doing, which is really, really, really good. So high performance, comfort, sustainability, and versatility. Many of these things are not just moisture wicking, but UV protective, smart textiles with built-in sensors and insulation materials and more. In fact, a friend of mine who suffers terribly from cold feet got himself a pair of socks the other day that you charge up and have a built-in warming function. So yeah, we can go pretty far with our clothing, which is really quite cool. And you can see these in all of the modern things that are even eco-friendly, using recycled polyester, organic cotton, ethical production practices, and so on and so forth, that people find important now that in the older days was less important. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know how much, for example, that gabardine is used in the modern day. It was originally made just from wool, but nowadays they use it in cotton, polyester, and other blends. It holds its shapes well, it's wrinkle resistant, it repels water, it's ideal for trench coats, suits, trousers, and workwear. I have a funny feeling that the twill weave is in fact the same one that you get in your jeans, or at least in the original jeans, which were diagonally lined. Very, very hard wearing, of course. Make it a very good outerwear. Very breathable and comfortable, despite it being quite dense. So good for colder climates. In that way, it's neat. So it's able to be used for workwear and outdoor wear, but even formal wear. It's a very interesting thing, in fact. Something to be looked into, I think, if you're interested in finding the right materials for wear. But yes, things have changed, of course. Your prehistoric versions, such as Otzi would have had, and the earlier times, they faced the same basic thing. Women, outdoors people, would have climbed mountains in dresses, which is something you would think of as dumb nowadays, but nevertheless. Early kayakers in seal skin and intestines, same basic thing. We know that that fashion has played its part. Many outdoor things are neon-clad monstrosities with eye-watering brightness and frenetic graphics, which really and truly is a fashion statement of note. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Otzi had little more than a loincloth on, but his boots were basically leggings as well. So not trousers per se, but the next best thing to deal with the cold. Outdoor enthusiasts can, of course, go into stores these days and get just about anything, but back in the day you had to make your own or trade for it. And we know that many ancient climbers have been uncovered high in the mountains that show what sort of things people did wear and sometimes failed while wearing. And the tech was often limited in that regard. So Otzi died at over 3,000 meters on the east ridge of the Finlspitz in the Ötztal Alps, which is why they called him Otzi. And there is a replica of his attire that was made. So at the time of death, he had an outer mantle of woven grass, which would have shed water and snow. He had a coat, a sheepskin loincloth, and goatskin leggings, a leather chin strap tethered on his bearskin cap. Moisture-absorbing grass filled his boots, and for 3230 BC, this was state-of-the-art, and literally it was doing the job of attending to the environment exactly the same way as the modern stuff does, which is pretty cool. Stanley, the famous explorer, wore a pith helmet and a proper shirt and suit jacket with his varying accoutrements and good leather boots. So for his time, he was well equipped as a tropical explorer, though I dare say he must have sweated a hell of a lot. Layering definitely what was used. We can see then that between Otzi's failed climb and the 1786 Mont Blanc summit by Jacques Balmat and Michel Paccard, things did change. The layering system was definitely more in use. Oversized wool coats, waistcoats, tall leather boots, layers of stockings to protect the feet, and as the temperatures rose, they could remove layers to cool off, which made it better. But dampness makes garments heavy, and while the clothing was warm, nimble it was not. So in the late 1870s, mountaineering also became a woman's pursuit, but social requirement meant they had to wear dresses made from light wool or alpaca. Again, alpaca is known for being very insulating. The earthy colors still mimicked Otzi's, and they were bland by today's standard, but fashion was not the idea, at least. And it wasn't just mountaineers. The Kamalakers canoeing outfits worked pretty much the same way, with your outer shells and inner layers. So a fascinating consistency, if you will, based on environment. We know that hats have always played a big deal. I know that they say that the myth that you don't lose as that much heat through your head, as people have said, but in personal experience you do. You also draw it in through your head a hell of a lot, especially if you're bald like me. So there's absolutely that, and having a decent hat or ski cap, your woolly top layer, made a huge difference. The earlier days, people wore formal stuff no matter what, just made a bit tougher. It wasn't quite as easy as in the modern day. Woolen ankle-length skirts for women who were quite up there, tight woven cotton, but all of it did absorb water, which made it rather tough. New brands that came out fixed a lot of that. There's some amazing pictures on the internet that you can find showing these severe mountaineers up and out there doing their thing in what is basically a three-piece suit. So quite funny in many ways. And there's an amazing picture of Elizabeth Hawkins from 1860 or 1907, she did the great trek up the mountain, and there she was in what was considered to be a slightly scandalous, shorter skirt. It only went just past her knees, which really and truly, good grief. But it did mean that she became the president of the Ladies Alpine Club, which is pretty damn cool. Now, in 1913, the invention of the first functional zipper by Gideon Sundback absolutely changed everything. Not everything had to have clunky buttons or be a pullover, and all of a sudden you could really start to streamline and organize your gear. And that, I think, has never changed and probably never will. I think that's pretty fair. And daar is jou ma se kopseer. Welcome, welcome. Tweed jackets were very popular, and were used in the 1921 Everest party that went on up. Camel hair was used a lot as well, which I can tell you is really uncomfortable shit. Not good at all. It was also the time where wax and rubber engineering really improved, and though imperfect, wax and rubber coatings ramped up waterproofness immensely. But it did, however, stop airflow. But it made a very big difference. And because of the flappers of the 20s, if you don't know who the flappers were, go check them out. It was truly scandalous for the time. Female outdoors people ditched bulky and inefficient skirts and took on the idea of actually wearing trousers, and to hell with everybody else. And of course that meant that they could catch up with men in their outdoor abilities a lot easier. Skirts are really not practical if you're doing exercise. So the turning point happened in 1924, the first Winter Olympics that popularized skiing and specialist garments, and women began skiing in Norwegian trousers, baggier at the top with cinched ankles paired with a tailored jacket inspired by a pilot's uniform, which meant they could move properly. And when George Mallory's body was discovered after his ill-fated 1924 Everest summit, he was wearing gabardine, wool, cotton and silk. And it was the first sign of what alpinists and mountaineers would wear in the modern age. The lighter blended fabrics boasted dynamic performance features like airflow and insulation and moisture wicking, as well as waterproofing. And it was a real change that mattered. I will say the fashion. Spooky, hello, how are you? I'm glad you joined us, because it was you that inspired the current live. And we're talking about clothing and things suitable for survival and what may or may not be important and why. So are you in fine form? Have you recovered from your New Year's parties?
Yeah, no, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yes, we only had a very short live last night because thereafter I went off, and you know that I don't drink at all. But it being New Year's, there were a couple of whiskies involved. And seeing as I drink maybe, twice a year at most in general, that's all it takes to make me unsuitable for public environment.
Okay.
But yeah, we're looking at clothing, and we did sort of a crossover between the idea of what sort of clothing and things people used in history for survival and outdoors and what is suitable now, and also the little details that you never seem to see in survival videos. It's not just about the gear, but about understanding things. So I thought it would be an interesting one for tonight, and I do hope you find it interesting and have comments. Did you have a suitable party?
No, it was boring. There was beer, Black Label, and Savannah. No,
Well,
Smirnoff, sorry.
Black Label and what?
Smirnoff, which I think is what?
Vodka.
Uh,
Smirnoff is vodka. I am definitely pro vodka. If I had to choose any one alcohol to drink, it would probably be vodka, except, and I am absolutely certain that every Scotsman in the world is going to hate me after this statement, but the world's best whiskey is made by the Irish. I'm sorry. If you ever get your
not
hands...
the Russians.
No, the Russians make crap whiskey. They are not whiskey makers. Their vodka is good, though they will hate me as well because I like Polish vodka. The Polish vodka is really nice. But the best
But you're
whiskey
a
in...
South African. Shouldn't you be liking brandy?
I'm not allowed brandy. I'm diabetic.
Ah,
Yeah, brandy is hugely high in sugar.
okay.
But yeah, if you ever get a chance in your life to get a 25-year or older bottle of Jameson's whiskey, you may consider that you have achieved the top level of whiskey drinking, in my opinion. There is nothing better. I was fortunate to have one glass of 25-year-old Jameson's once, and my God, there is nothing like it.
How do you drink it? On ice or with Coke?
If you ever even bring a mix near a 25-year-old Jameson's, I will personally beat you to death. Because, my word, no, you never mix that. That's for the lesser things. No, you take it...
So on ice.
On ice would be the absolute limit of mix for something like that. Plain would be better, with a glass of iced water on the side. Yes, no, Jameson's Irish whiskey of that quality, and believe me, you will pay. It will cost you an arm and a leg and both kidneys to get a bottle. It ain't cheap, but it's worth every penny. I will ruin further my reputation with the Scots by saying that I've had a 20-year-old Glenfiddich once, and it wasn't even as half as good as a 25-year-old Jameson's. I'm just saying. And I'm not a big alcohol drinker. I will drink it purely for the pleasure. I never drink to get drunk. So
who are you partying with?
I was partying with my fiance. All of the children's went out and did their own thing elsewhere. We had the house to ourselves, so we had a really good movie on TV, and we had a couple of very nice drinks and a very nice meal, and that was more than enough.
Okay.
So yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that very much. I do like the quieter and not go outy things for those kind of big parties. Jacobus, welcome, welcome. So yeah, that's my take on that, and I'm sure. So if you want vodka, my favorite is Polish Wisla. rather than the Russian, though my second choice would be Russian Bear. I do like Russian Bear, they do it, but then I want it peppered. And it's got to be done in the proper Russian fashion, where you've got your side snacks that go with it. There's a whole ritual that any good Russian will tell you has to be followed.
Well,
So,
maybe you will think that there's something wrong with me, but I also enjoy wine.
not at all. Bear in mind, we are South African. I will tell you a fascinating story. My mother went to visit some of her family back in the day, and one or two of her side of the family are very high class. And in honor of her visit, they had a bottle of the most expensive South African wine they could afford for the meal. And she said to me afterwards, it was the same quality that we get in a box in this country.
Yeah.
We are spoilt. Our wine is really good compared with overseas wine. There are few countries, I think the only two countries that can match South African wine would be certain French wines, which are very, very good, and believe it or not, Portuguese wine. Certain Portuguese wines are amazing. And we, in fact, in South Africa, have drawn a lot of our early winemaking skills from both the French and the Portuguese, and then improved on it further. So if you're a Cape Town wine snob, believe me, what you're getting is the top level of wine in the world. We really do. I mean, our Cabernet Sauvignon is impressive. So yeah, no, I'm with you, Spooky. Enjoy your wine. It is worth the enjoyment, and we're in the right country to enjoy it.
Yeah, but also I like also bitter red wine.
Yes, I'm with you on that too. I'm not a sweet wine drinker at all. I like mine to be the dark red. There was a company that came out with a wine blend known as a double Cabernet. It was a limited edition release, and it was a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and what is the one of the other Cabernets? I forget now, but it was a blend, and it was this dark, bitter, woody flavor, really nice. But my God, did it give you a hangover the next day? It was really, really good, and you couldn't stop drinking it. And we went through like 4 bottles between two of us the one night, sitting up late, and the next day I was ruined.
Yeah, but it's nice for during the winter. It keeps you nice and warm.
Oh, it
Makes you
does.
feel nice and fuzzy inside.
I have to tell you, um, there's a German girl I used to know years ago that had a proper recipe from scratch for Glühwein, but one of the real old German Glühwein recipes. It was a family tradition. And when she was here in South Africa, she made it using one of the Cabernets, a very heavy red. And she said that the wine made a huge difference, but whatever she put in with the spices, one cup, and you can actually feel your blood rising in temperature by about 4 degrees. I mean, you would sweat after a couple of cups of that on a cold night. It was amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for cold days, a good red wine. Absolutely. Probably not good for you, but many cups. But yes, I'm with you on that. So in terms of that, absolutely. I don't know about you though. I've never been a shooters or cocktails person. I
Well,
don't.
probably in my early 20s, like hitting bars, that's it. I mean,
No,
never really at parties. Just you go at a bar, you take a shot, and you leave,
no,
and then you go to a nightclub, and then you've wasted all your money on alcohol because
I've
you're
done
all
that.
hyped up on ecstasy. So drinking doesn't really help.
My younger brother once invited me out to do a cocktails evening, and they came in like 15 different colors, sometimes four of those colors in the same glass, and it just did not work for me. No, I am very suspicious of such things. Give me a standard drink. I want to know what I'm drinking.
Uh,
Didn't work for me at all.
I was roofied once.
Oh, that's happened. Yeah. You go out to bars on New Year's, it's almost expected.
This
What?
was about 10 years ago, maybe.
Okay. How did you survive?
Well, luckily my sister was there.
Ah.
The good one, the one that always phones me.
Ah, yes, the one that remembers that maybe when you're seeing golden dragons and pink elephants, it's time to take you home.
Yeah. So she was there. She helped me in the car, took me home.
And how did you feel the next day?
Well, I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't even remember starting to drink at all.
Oh, wow. That good, huh? I don't know if I was lucky or if I was slow doing the drinking, but they tried to roofie me at a bar one Christmas. And I think we were talking too much, so I was drinking very slowly. And all of a sudden, I realized that there were rainbow lights around everything. And I remember turning to my friend and saying, you know what? I have a funny feeling that they're putting something in the drinks. And they looked at me and they're like, you can see the rainbows too? And I'm like, yeah. So we went to another bar, which we knew was a decent one, because it was just like, I don't think you're supposed to see rainbows around everything. So it wasn't a proper roofie, it was a half roofie. But man,
Was
it
it
was trippy.
maybe lights inside of the bar?
No, because we went in, there was nothing like that. It was absolutely something in the drink. And it was very clear. So, yeah.
No, nightclubs, I couldn't handle nightclubs anymore because of the flashing lights.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah, I think it can be scary. Yo, ma, dagse. How are you?
It's really not nice. That flashing lights makes you feel nauseous.
No, I totally agree with you in that regard. That definitely does make the brain even trippier. I suppose if you're deliberately on something, then it would be cool. But I've never voluntarily been a partaker of the specialist designer things, if you will. So,
Well, it's nice and fun if you had a disco biscuit. But as soon as the disco biscuit is wearing out, then you need to go.
yeah, no, I've always been very boring in that regard, I think. I've never personally taken anything myself on purpose, ever. It's just never been a thing. Cigarettes and
Mm.
alcohol has always been more than sufficient for me.
Yeah, no, I was out with a chick, a very hot chick. She had some disco biscuits. She
Yeah,
wanted to go and party.
that
So I
right
went to
there.
party with her.
That right there is probably the reason behind just about every guy's first exposure to there was this hot chick, and then,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to lie, that's been the start of many stories along the lines of where things went really bad. So there was this hot chick, and then it
Mm.
goes down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I met her at the skydiving club, and then we just hanged out for a couple of weeks, partied, and yeah, it was crazy, crazy times.
Oh, I can almost match your story. I used to know this girl that, yes, she was hot, and yes, I fancied her. And the one day she turns around and says, "Oh, this weekend, Friday night, come over." And I thought, wow, cool, great, wonderful. So, I mean, never happened to me before. So, of course, I was there like a shot, and she's like, "Oh, this weekend we're going down the coast." I'm like, "You do realize that none of us have a driving license?" And she's like, "Yeah, but we have got a car." Bonus. And there was weed, and there was alcohol, and there was a car. And we took off all the way down the south coast. The car broke down while we were down there, which meant it was really difficult getting back. And as it turned out, none of the varying parentals were aware that we were going for the weekend, or where we were for the weekend, or that we had somebody's car. And the owner of the car didn't know that we had their car. All of this became apparent after. And yes, there was weed and alcohol and all the rest, and we were on a beach somewhere down, I don't remember where. We just drove for, I don't know, about 500 k's down the coast and found a party on New Year's Eve down the coast. I was like, all right.
Okay. And you made it back safely.
We did, amazingly enough. We survived, except for the car breaking down. It was fine. I had a
Uh-huh.
learner's license, at least for the car, which meant I was the principal driver, insofar as it mattered. Um, yeah, probably the worst decision ever, and it started with, there was this hot chick.
Yeah. I also got punched in the face um, from this uh, bunch of kids. Um, yeah, no, they were probably jealous because we went to this pond,
Okay,
and I was sitting there. We were making out. I was making out with a chick. These kids just came in and said, "There's kids around," and punched me in the face.
okay,
I
that's
told
kind of
them,
them.
I told them like, so what are you doing? You rather want to teach the kids of violence than teach them to love. I don't know. And then they were like, oh, yeah, okay. And then they walked away.
Strange things happen at parties like that. I,
That
I,
was funny.
I do remember that there was a guy, apparently I found out afterwards, he had a reputation for it, that he would start arguments in a punch-up because he enjoyed the punch-up. And we were at a favored bar of ours, and weirdly going in, we were sitting drinking, and there was a guy sitting near us. But now, it was one of those old style clubs where it's practically pitch black. You can't see a damn thing. So I had no idea who I was talking to, but I made good buddies with this bloke. And we were chatting, carrying on. And later on, this other guy, who clearly he just wanted to turn things violent, came and started trying to take me on in order to start said fight. And I'm standing there trying to decide what to do. And all of a sudden, there's this voice that came from right behind me, but about 2 feet above me. And this voice is like, "This is my friend. You will leave now." And I'm just like, oh my God, now what? And it turns out this this guy I'd been chatting to had been sitting down on the floor, not on a chair, and he was about 7 foot tall. He was this biker guy, and he was huge. He was like 4 foot broad. He was massive. And when he saw this guy trying to take me on, he just walked up. And the psych takes one look at the guy behind me, and he turned and ran. And we just never saw him again, ever. He just took off and avoided the area for there on after, because this humongous 7 foot tall guy that decided I was his buddy was like, I'm here to protect. It's like, cool,
Yeah.
cool, buy the man a beer, do it now.
Uh, at that point, it was a bunch of kids drinking. And after they punched me and they walked away, I drove back home. My house wasn't that far away. And I picked up my trained Rottweiler.
Okay, that'll
Yeah.
do it.
And then went back to the pond. And
Sounds like a
then they
plan.
saw the dog. And I wasn't going to tell the dog to go and bite them or anything, but they jumped into their cars and drove
The
away.
best way. Prevention is better than cure.
Uh,
New Year's Eve. In my family, Christmas always was at home. That was the rule, because it was family. So I never, ever, ever went out on Christmas growing up. But New Year's Eve was your party. You could do what you liked. So the crazy stories were always New Year's Eve stories, not Christmas stories. So, I mean, right into my 30s, Christmas, I was always a good little boy. But New Year's, not so much.
no, no, but we never had Christmas in my house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because my family's Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, yes, of course. So, yeah, no, not celebrated that.
Yeah, on my mom's side and my dad's side.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically the entire family. I'm like agnostic. Yes, then my sister is a Christian.
So, yeah.
My
It's one of...
other sister, which nobody likes, she's a Jehovah's Witness.
It's interesting, actually, and probably one of the cool things about South Africa is that we do have so many different cultural setups all side by side. So it's kind of interesting. Funnily enough, I was talking to somebody the other day that they as well, they are in fact Jehovah's Witnesses, and so they don't ever celebrate any of these things, but they sneakily admitted that they sit on their balcony on New Year's so they can watch the other people's fireworks. It's not our fireworks, we're not celebrating. However, uh, so it does amuse me. But yeah, that's how that goes, I suppose.
Yeah, and they drink once a year a sip of wine
Okay.
with a piece of bread on Easter, I think.
Yes, that's the one because they only have well, the Catholics will call it the Eucharist, which you can have daily, but Jehovah's Witnesses only do it once a year.
Yeah.
Vaguely remembering my comparative religion studies. So, yeah, that's. I know
But
that.
they only take a sip of it.
Yes, I know that it's once a month for many of the Afrikaans denominations. And again, it's a sip.
Yeah.
So
which doesn't mean anything.
no, but then I suppose in all fairness that's kind of the point.
Yeah,
It's a symbolic thing.
yeah. That's just part of their tradition. They don't do it to get drunk or anything.
No. So by contrast, I've got a couple of buddies that when they go to drink, they drink specifically to get drunk, and therefore they will never ever buy any nice alcohol because they say, "What's the point? It's to get completely wrecked, not to enjoy."
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
No, I don't like to get drunk.
no, nor do
I
I.
like to get tipsy, but not drunk.
A little tipsy's fine because you still know what you're doing and all the rest of it. You're just happier.
Yeah. Yes. As long as you feel good. You
Yeah.
don't want to be drunk.
But yeah, no, I know people who make the point to get blind wasted. And to me, that's like, well, what's the point of that? You don't remember any of it. Well, maybe
And I
that
also
is the
don't get
point.
people who drink alone. What's the point of drinking alone? You want to interact and have fun with friends and family. You
Yeah,
don't sit and drink alone. Then you're just an alcoholist.
exactly. I don't know. Who's to say? Jacques, how's it? And Sal, welcome, welcome. And I see laptop is back. That's always awesome. So yeah, New Year's parties
Smoking weed
and
is fun. You can
hey.
do that alone. Smoking weed is fun. You can do that alone.
Well, that's for personal relaxation, from what I've understood.
Yeah. Well, I do it to travel with my mind.
I have had it, but never had good results with. I think I'm allergic to it, so I don't really do it. But my family now, they all do it for relaxation and just giggles. So, you know, and why
Yeah, when you
not?
get the laughies.
Yes, and they enjoy it greatly, and it's. I have to say, it seems to be far better for you than alcohol. From
Yeah.
what I mean, I've never encountered an aggressive pot user, but I've
No, the highs
encountered.
I enjoy is when I'm trying to calculate how the universe works.
Yes, there's definitely been cases where I've encountered users who will ask like massively detailed existential questions, but never anyone that's gotten aggressive or violent.
Yeah, no, weed smokers don't get violent.
Yeah, so you know, hey, it's chill. Unless of course you're a biscuit, because they certainly seem to get the munchies.
Yeah. I've got a neighbor. He, he lives about a few houses away from me. He got violent with me a few weeks ago. But I know he smokes rocks, which is
Yeah,
cocaine.
yeah, that's very, very different.
Yeah. No, he came, I was in the street, he walked towards me and he said I fucked up his phone, this old phone, and then he sent me pictures of his phone. It's this ancient phone, it's got it's two separate pieces. The one you hold next to your ear, the other one you hold with that other hand at
Okay.
your mouth. Yeah. And then he said me and this other neighbor fucked up his phone. I was like, I never even fucking saw the thing.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But he walked up to me in the street, said he's gonna fuck me up and he's gonna fuck that other guy up. I was like, what the fuck is this guy on?
I don't personally consider weed to be a drug. But so I'm anti-drug use.
Yeah.
So any of those things like rocks and what have you, to me, no. That
Yeah.
it
No, I've
should
never
be,
tried stuff
no,
like that.
nor have
The
I.
only thing I've tried was ecstasy with the hot girl, and that's it. Which is called a disco biscuit, but it's ecstasy.
I know someone that used to use it all the time, and it would make him really, really, really bouncy for a while. But it didn't change a great deal about his personality or anything. He just got like really
Uh,
bouncy.
yeah, no, it just gives you a lot of energy, and that's all it does.
Yeah. But
It
I've
doesn't make you even happy or anything. It makes you really. It makes your
energetic.
pupils big. You
Yes.
see better. You hear better, and
So
yeah, you're bouncy. You just want to dance. If you're in the
yes,
mood for dancing, otherwise you're hyped up.
ADHD. See, I
Yeah,
get it
but
naturally. I'm ADHD, so I don't need it.
mm,
But yeah, no, no. I never have and never will. Thank you very much. And of course, that's one of my great regrets because, of course, now I'm diabetic. I have to take medication 3 times a day, and I absolutely hate it. So, uh, uh, uh. But nevertheless. Okay, so we're looking at today's thing being on the clothing and stuff used for outdoors and survival, and how it's changed and why it's changed. So things like rubber colloid and similar obviously has improved things, especially the soles of your boots. Believe it or not, that matters. The ability to grip. Now, we know in the past leather was your basic, and spiked leather, if you were really heavily into outdoors, we know the Romans used spiked leather sandals. But having rubber has definitely improved that massively. Velcro, 1941, massive
I've got
changes.
nice steel tip rubber boots.
I've got some, they're not steel tips, but they've got a hardened rubber where the steel tip would be. So it's not quite as tough, but it is very tough. But it's slightly more flexible. They're hunting boots from America, and I've got to say, it does make a difference, hey? It does.
Mm.
So yeah, what is the bottom of the boot like? Are they good
It's
knobblies?
yeah, it's thick. I mean, I can show it to you. Let me get it quickly.
Cool, cool, cool. So yes, the bottom of your boots makes a big difference, and of course with that your Ventile fabric and synthetic fills, which also came around by the 1950s. Here we go, what do we got? Spooky's going to show us his bootses. Which are apparently at the bottom of a very deep box. I'm teasing you, Spooky.
Yeah, no, I don't wear them that often.
Well,
Looks healthy.
while they're tough and all the rest of it, they tend to be kind of heavy. So,
They are slip-ons.
oh God, no. I never, ever, ever like slip-on anythings. I don't approve.
trying to get the light. So yeah, no, it's a bit dirty. It's
I,
got a thick rubber.
now that bottom part is what I would call a medium knobbly, and I like that best. I'm a lace person. I would need laces for me. I'm a lace wearing person, but the
I
bottom
don't like
part,
laces. It's nice and
that's very nice.
feel fit.
But I
Yeah,
definitely like that sole is absolutely the kind I prefer.
you like
100%.
this one.
Yes.
So this one has a lace. So it also got a nice texture.
Those are canvas.
Um, Not a steel tip.
Steel tip I can take or leave. I'm okay with. My biggest concern is the sole, and I like laces, and I like the tongue
Oh, this
of
one's
it.
brown.
Yeah, I know that's good. But the tongue must be sewn in on the side, so it's one piece. That matters to me.
Yeah, I like these ones. I like to put my shoes on very easily without having to tie the laces.
Well, to each their own, I suppose.
Yeah.
I like my laces in that regard. So,
The other day I was playing soccer. It was at my stepbrother's, oh, what do you call it?
club.
The group of guys get together before he gets married.
Oh, bachelors.
Yeah, so we went and were paintballing, shooting each other. We also played a bit of soccer, and we
Cool.
were driving these carts for racing against each other. Yeah, and then I was wearing these shoes because I know I was gonna like run around in the bushes and stuff.
Yes.
And it's an odd soccer game. And then my opponents was like kept on kicking me against my legs.
So you kicked back, and they got the
No,
steel toes.
I did not want it to kick back. And then I kicked the guy once. And then it was like ah. And then even hours later he said, "Oh, those steel tip shoes of yours are really."
Well, you started it. You started it. Take that. Absolutely. No, I'm with you there, bro. I'm with
Yeah,
you. Absolutely. So
really funny.
yes, big changes in outdoor gear that matters is Velcro, Ventile fabric and synthetic fill, and zippers. And that was all between 1941 and 1951. And the biggest change was the invention of injection molded zipper teeth, which was a major change because it means you could make them very, very easily. And the idea of the cord lock toggle, which we now have on just about every single outdoor gear item in existence. And that was from 1952. So very impressive stuff that made major changes. Better gear for letting air through but not water through, and letting sweat wick away and all the rest of it. A huge amount of changes, which improved for the good for today. The other big thing which people don't think about is on a backpack, your vented padded back makes wearing one much better. And I saw on yours the other day, it's got a vented padded back. That makes a huge difference. Originally, they never had that. So these things are good improvements. And then, of course, weirdly enough, your things that have never changed is the use of leather and the use of wool. They're still the best choices for quite a lot of gear. in that regard, strangely enough. Now, an interesting thing, have you ever seen one of those vests that you can get that looks like it's made of a net? And you sort of look at it and you think, what the hell is the point of that? It literally looks like a net with big holes all over it. Why would you have a vest made of that? And the answer is, as an underlayer, it allows trapped air that with a layer over it makes it much, much warmer, which means it's very good as a core temperature controller in cold environments. So that's what that's for. And in fact, in 1949, Émile Bondenue and Pierre Alain used that kind of thing, as did Edmund Hillary, for their trips, and they worked. So there you go. The idea of the Fast and Light Health shirt, created by John Hunt, of all people.
How does that net clothing look like?
It literally looks like, if the net holes are about, I'm just looking at what you've got up there, they call them wife beater vests in America.
This guy was recently arrested for his own safety. He is that Noah in Ghana,
Oh yes,
saying that there would be a flood on Christmas Day.
I remember you were talking about that.
Yeah,
Basically,
never came.
the holes are about 0.5 centimeter wide.
Yeah.
It literally looks like you've crocheted it out of string. It is a string vest, essentially. But as an underlayer, because of the way it traps air, it increases the retention of your body heat and keeps you warm that way. So it's very, very effective with a layer over it.
This guy's like, he's only wearing this weird
Well,
ancient looking thing.
yes, I don't know how effective or useful it would be as that kind of a thing in a hot climate. I suppose it's cool because without the retention of the air, your skin is
Well, it's
much...
only for show.
Yeah, to say that you're wearing a shirt, I suppose. There's that. But they were used by Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing
He wanted to
Norgay,
look ancient for his followers, saying that he's some sort of was
prophet.
sent by God.
Yes. So yeah, they weren't originally designed for that. Yeah. They were designed literally for people like Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary climbing up the world's highest peak. And they said that they worked very, very well. I do know that I was taught when I was in the military that you want your shirt to be slightly too big and you wear a tighter t-shirt under it, and that will keep you cooler in the hot African weather. And it did work, and we did. That's what we would do. To this day, if I go for a serious hike, I'll wear a light cotton outer shirt, long sleeve to keep the sun off, and a t-shirt under it. And it works. So yeah, there you go. Now, of course, 1959 was the big break. A fabric that can stretch more than 200 times beyond its form and still snap back into place. Form-fitting?
Oh my God.
Have you guessed what it is?
No,
Like,
sorry, I just read something here about that Noah and his supporters. Yeah. No, but it's probably their own stupidity. No, some of the people sold their belongings and stuff to help to give them give them some money to
And now they've got
build the
nothing,
ship.
and yeah, that's how it goes. Drink the Kool-Aid. So yeah, the material that I'm talking about, of course, is Lycra, which has become an absolute standard for serious outdoorsy peoples because of the ability for it to move with you.
Okay.
Then
Have you
1960,
ever made leather before?
have I ever made leather? I have. Not well. It's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah, you can't just hang it up and dry it out. It doesn't really work.
Absolutely.
You have to cure it.
And you have to do
You
it
throw a bunch of
carefully
chemicals on it.
so that it doesn't rot. It's a
Yeah.
lot harder than you think. So mine did not last.
Just hanging it up, it becomes fragile. You have to cure it, throw some sort of chemicals all over it and soak it and let it bathe
Well,
and then dry it out.
interestingly enough, there's a quote that is absolutely true. An animal has just enough brains to save its hide. And it's a joke because if it's got the brains, it don't get caught. So it's got enough brains to save its hide. But at the same time, the amount of brains that a deer has when mashed up is the right amount that is needed to brain cure the amount of hide it has, so that it lasts and is therefore saved and won't rot. So it has enough brains to save its hide.
Okay,
Yes, so when you brain cure a leather, the amount you need is the amount of brains that that animal has.
okay. I didn't know that.
There you go. A weird hunting fact.
Yeah. How did people, I don't know, probably just experimenting.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, brain curing is one of the absolute first forms of curing. The other thing is tannin curing. And of course, you can get tannin from oak bark and acorns and such like. And that will, you basically keep cooking up oak bark until you make this sort of really, really strong tea. And then you soak the leather in it, and it leaches out certain chemicals that cause the skin to rot and what have you. So you soak it for a certain amount of time, and then you have to rub it with fats or waxes to make it flexible. And that's how you tannin cure a hide.
Okay.
But do it outside because boiled oak bark stinks. And it
Well,
stains like crazy.
apparently humans used leather for thousands of years, since
Oh,
the
yeah.
Stone Age.
Well,
They used it to build houses,
Ot-
clothing, and
Otzi was found wearing uh, 3 different types of leather. You know, the Otzi the Iceman? He had a bearskin hat, a goatskin loincloth, and no, a sheepskin loincloth, and goatskin boots that went all the way up to the top of his thighs.
okay. Can you just give me a second quickly?
Yep, yep, yep.
I gotta check something.
So, outdoor gear: cotton, leather, silk, and wool. Down filling is something that was still reserved only for serious Himalayan type expeditions. But synthetic fabric opened up these kind of things to everybody as it's far cheaper. It's lighter, dries quicker, more resistant to water, and so on and so on. And that meant that you could literally tailor the garments not just to the weather, but to different kinds of weather and different layers, which matters. So in 1965, Sierra Designs came up with the 60-40 mountain parka. And we so often nowadays hear about a 60-40 blend. Well, these were the buggers that did it first. And it was literally a 60-40 blend of synthetic and natural fibers, which gave you most of the best of both. And thereafter would be used for jackets, bags, shoes, and more. And of course, the famed brand LL Bean sold tons of things like that. Waterproof coatings and breathable waterproof laminates in the 70s took us even further. And of course, Gore-Tex, the company, changed the game entirely. Bob Gore secured the patent on the application of thinly stretched Teflon in a waterproof membrane over fabric, making Gore-Tex material. And that was absolutely a massive change to make things much, much more modern and more effective, because of course synthetic fabrics are much easier to dye and pattern on, which means you can have all kinds of colors, patterns and brands which people want. So yeah, and of course in 75 ITW Nexus was granted a patent for the first side release plastic buckle, and Buffalo Systems rolled out their Double P, their Pyle Pertex garments. Berghaus released a full coverage of the Yeti Gator, complete with a rubber band. And in 75, saw the Rohan's Tundra soft shell close-fitting stretch jacket that was wind and shower proof. So that was when everything just went crazy. And of course, between the 80s and the 90s, it was all about the color. No tone was too bright, and the more neon you were, the better. Which, yeah, why the hell not? Skiers especially were guilty of that. These days, I think the big thing is, of course, camo pattern. Everything has to, if it's not camo, it's not real survival. God knows why. But yeah, all your layers and your lycras, the use of plastic and rubber on boots where you've got part canvas or part other materials have really changed the game. Hiking boots where you can have reinforced heels and toes and backs, so that you got really good ankle protection, good solid soles, but a light breathable upper, just changes everything. So that is very, very important, of course. After which, it's been colors and things that really matter. So with the clothing, what tools matter? Now, this I think will be most interesting to you, Spooky, because when you look at modern survival kits, I'm going to tell you straight away, they carry way too much stuff. Because remember, if you're out in a survival situation, almost guaranteed you're going to be walking. And if you're going to be walking, you are carrying everything. So less is more. Now, we know from way back in the day, you would absolutely have some kind of cutting tool, a chopping variety of some kind, and a slicing variety. So a small knife-like tool and a larger chopping type tool. have been found back from the Stone Age. Blades and microliths and more. And then, interestingly, as far back as that, the other really, really important thing besides your blades were needles and scrapers. So needles, right back when, because you could use that to pretty much repair any of your clothing, which was usually leather. So a knife, an axe, and a needle, if you were a Stone Age person, was your top-end kit. And this is interesting because it carries through. So in the age of exploration, the next big thing was your actual compass. Compasses have not been used for a long time. People just didn't know how to get them, and they were considered quite magical. The earliest ones were called lodestones, naturally magnetic stones that were found that could be used to find north. Then you got fancy things like the astrolabe and the quadrant, the buckstaff, or the Davis quadrant as it was called, allowing you to use the sun to calculate direction and more. Your traverse board, which the sailors needed to record speed against position, which you would use with a chip log and sand glass in order to know which direction you were going, even when out of sight of land. Obviously, maps and charts were a huge deal. And then your actual method of travel, the earliest adventurers having a ship was a huge thing. And we know that one of the most famous ships for exploration was the Caravel, because if you wanted to do any exploring, you sent the Portuguese, especially the guys from Madeira. They were the sailors way before Britain ever became sailing type people, and they did a lot of stuff. And the Caravel was not that far different from the great exploration done by the Vikings in their ship. Fast, easy to keep balanced, which mattered. Of course, in the modern day, it's all about your GPS and so on, your specialized high-tech clothing, your safety and medical gear and tools and what have you. But it's gone out of hand, and therefore we have way too much. I have seen kits that without food and water, there is literally no way you're going to carry everything. I'm sorry, you just won't. It's a dumb idea. So survival gear per se has changed. And what you need to actually do is think about those things that matter. So in the ancient and primitive eras, your basic tools, which included your fishing gear, your weapons, which were also hunting gear, and your production gear, so axe or knife, production gear, your weapons like your sling or your bow or spear, and fishing gear, hooks and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it depends what are you trying to survive from. I mean, you probably need bulletproof armor, and you need a gun, you need a semi-automatic.
Only in war. Weapons fall alongside. Most of survival is aimed at environmental. And for that, your base tools, your ability to make a fire, food and water.
At least get some pepper spray.
Yes, but remember that even before that, you've got to have the other gear, because without the other gear, you won't get the opportunity to use the weaponry. And if your other gear weighs too much, then you won't be carrying any weaponry, which is a problem. And that's one of the big challenges for a soldier, because you have to carry a lot of weaponry. Therefore, much of your gear isn't carried by you, which people forget as well. So you would absolutely need a shelter or a means to make a shelter, a means to make fire, your base tools, and then a means to carry things, which people always seem to forget, and your food and water. And food and water is going to take up a good 70% of the weight of your gear, at least. Because in a survival situation, generally, you don't have time. So people who say, well, I'm going to stop and hunt, no, you won't. You're getting out of danger in survival. Sustainment comes after you've survived. You may then hunt in sustainment or put traps or whatever, but in survival, you won't. So you've got to have the food to do the surviving so you can get to the sustainment. So 70% of your gear will be food and water. Fact.
Okay. South Africa might be, there might be some wars, or at least we might have attacks happening
True.
within the next few years.
True.
And a civil war is also a possibility.
I suspect not, though
Yeah,
certain
not civil
politics
war, I
might
guess.
want it.
Well, it depends on how far they succeed with the divide and conquer.
Yes, that it
But
is going to be critical.
if you look at the ANC currently and how they are against the US, because currently they're now doing military training with Iran and Russia, which are both enemies of the US. And if you look at Donald Trump, he seems to be very trigger happy these days.
Oh, he is, there's no doubt. No, there will be changes, let us say that. So, yes, the having a means of preservation is definitely a good idea. So let's take you to the age of exploration between the 1400s and 1600s. So your tools that were most important, that were consistent, again, knife, axe, or a chopping tool, a cooking kettle. So instead of just a pot, a closable kettle, usually copper, okay, needle, okay, good rope and cordage, and a good compass of some variety, okay.
Wow.
And then the other big thing included food and food connection items. So your fishing kit, again. And then, interestingly enough, they went for cured meats, dried fruit, and cheese, and dried bread, basically, hardtack. And those were your key survival foods, which still work very, very well today. Now, of course, in the industrial era and early military, because when the big world wars happened, so from the 18th to the 1900s, canned food came in, which did help.
Spam.
Yes, indeed. But the food, cured meat, cheese, dried fruit, fishing gear, same. Multi-purpose. Sorry, say that again.
No, nuts. Nuts is a good.
Well, that
keep.
would fall under dried fruit. So fruit and nuts, yes. Often the nuts were salted because the added salts were an early method of replacing electrolytes.
Yeah.
And it works today. But
I
then,
was going to say, mention about a compass. I don't need one because I'm like a self-taught astronomer.
Yes, okay, number one, you absolutely can replace gear often with intellect. Okay, so totally. Secondly, I myself don't generally carry anything more than a button compass for when I really, really, it's so foggy I don't know what I'm doing type thing, because I know how to find north without a compass. I was taught that.
Yeah.
And to me, before I taught you to use a compass, I would teach you to use a map and how to orient a map from geography.
Mm.
Because to me, that's far, far, far more valuable. And
Yeah.
the trouble is, modern survival is based on military survival, where, don't forget, in the military, I need to not just know where I am, I need to know exactly where I am. Because if I'm calling in an artillery strike, I need to be exact down to the meter. Because
Yes.
I don't want them hitting me. Whereas if I'm trying to find that town, I can, if I'm out by half a kilometer, I'm still okay. Because towns are
Yeah.
very big. So, you know, we, 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 we don't think about why the kit. And it's the thinking that I have a problem with modern survival kits. So a button compass is enough for if it's a really foggy day.
Mm.
Carry a map. So in the industrial and military areas, the food was basically the same except for canned items. Your weapons were the same with the addition of a good firearm because it was a military era. Okay, and slightly better first aid, but the basics are still what matter. A pressure bandage, a couple of plasters, some antiseptic wipes or cream, and something to sanitize. That's it. That's all you need. You're surviving, not having a major thing. In terms of wound closures, when you see Rambo sewing himself up, I can promise you now, you will never, ever, ever do that. You won't. I don't care.
I
You
had canned food today. I was in the mood for canned food.
There you go. Canned food is good. And proper corned beef hash is really nice.
Yeah. Well, I had baked beans and tuna.
Not a combination I would have thought of. I mean, I like both, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I would eat them combined.
Yeah.
But
No, I
tuna, yeah.
ate them separately. I
Ah, there
had
you see.
tuna with buns and mayonnaise and
Yes,
some lettuce.
absolutely. No, I'm full for that. And of course, the inevitable South African sardines and tomato sauce, sure. Now, one thing that I would say that's interesting is the introduction of steel helmets, and thereafter your synthetic, therefore lighter helmets. A good helmet goes a long way, actually. It really does.
And depending on what you're going to do. If you're going to climb a tree, you probably need a helmet.
Well, climbing anything, a good helmet goes a lot further than other forms of armor. Camouflage, yes, where it's needed and where it's suitable, but at least in Africa, the big one is mosquito nets, the kind of protection you really do need.
Yeah.
Better medical, so they talk about surgical kits and vaccines. That's not a survival item. You should have that either beforehand, hopefully, or afterwards once you've gotten out of the survival situation. It's not a survival tool. So, but a decent field medicine thing, yeah, sure. They talk about the late 20th century now. You've got the core 5Cs or the expanded 10Cs, which was invented by Dave Canterbury. They're great. I don't use that system. I've got a different system entirely. Hey Sharks, that I use. So, but it amounts to much the same. It implies that you need a cutting tool, combustion, a cover, a container, and cordage. So, sure, on whatever version or variety suits you, and you get lots of different types. I do know that nowadays they often say 2 is 1 and 1 is none. I call bullshit. Because if you go with that for all your gear, you won't be able to walk. It's another catchphrase that is meaningless. Technology has improved. So, as I showed you the other night, I have an advanced water filter. It's fantastic. It can purify, not just filter, but purify 20,000 litres, which is more than I will ever need in an emergency. So, absolutely. GPS, it depends where you are. How I wouldn't bother with it myself, because especially in our country, even if somebody knows where you are, they're not coming to fetch you. They don't care. Ferrocerium rods, sure, they're a great backup. You're better off with a decent lighter and a backup of matches. Sorry. I know that ferrocerium rods are the trend, but they take skill to use. I do carry one as an absolute backup, but it's a third level backup. It is not my primary choice of fire starter. The good old Bic works. Mylar blankets. Say again?
The deadliest animal in the world
Is man.
that you can encounter, eh?
Is man.
No. No, it's not man.
Unless you are thinking of the mosquito.
It's the mosquito.
I still think people have killed more people than mosquitoes have, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, mosquitoes doesn't just kill people.
Yes, they are deadly. Absolutely. I mean, no doubt at all. The space age, however, has given us something useful, Mylar. And they do work. So space blankets, they really, really do work. And if you follow my other channel, you see that one of the things which you do need and is used by basically every traveling outdoor culture ever is a ground cover to sleep on, to stop rising chill and rising damp. And did you know, if you go and get one of those, you know those reflective Mylar things you put in the front window of your car to keep the heat out? Get one of those as a pad to sleep on. It makes a massive difference to your warmth. And it's waterproof. And it's light. So, yeah, space blankets, amazing. Specialized shelters, yeah, sure. Different types. I still want to get my hands on 2 of the South African military bivvies because I know how to make that into a really good shelter and I can actually use it to wear in rain. And they're very lightweight. That's my choice. They are fantastic, tough, multi-use items. I can't find them around though. And then, of course, your cordage. And everybody says paracord. Paracord is good. It is not the only good, and it has disadvantages too. But yes, it can take up to 550 pounds of pressure, true, which is great. But you often don't need that. So multiple grades of cordage of different kinds. And I put it to you that one of the most useful ones is the common and garden South African sisal string, which is pretty tough. And it's really cheap, which means you can use it for everything and not worry too much. It gives great grip, it's strong, it's useful. I carry a couple of hanks of that. You need at least 30 feet of cordage. Having more is better. So between 100 feet and 30 feet is what you want. And then, of course, your fancy kits with fancy radios, useless, fancy flashlights. You don't need 1,000 lumen light. Sorry, you don't. 200 lumens is more than enough, thank you very much. Anything else
Unless
is...
you want to blind a cop to run away.
Well, there's that. They have their uses, I won't deny. And if you're doing search and rescue, it's different. But for an average person, no. A good whistle, however, will go a long way for a civilian. And of course, we have got a certain amount of improvement in non-perishable foods because that does help. So adaptation remains the key. Your core needs: shelter, water, fire, food, navigation, defense, and first aid. Sure, that is your base. Layering technology, absolutely. It will improve things. But their insistence on a ferro rod, to me, is marketing and dumb. But how have survival kits evolved? Well, that we are going to bring up in the next live, because we're going to go through to modern survival and what real lessons we've learned from practical outdoor living done by people in history to avoid the problem of I've got every possible survival item but can't pick up my bag.
Yeah.
And we do have
war survival.
Well, war is one of the main things that has caused survival kits to evolve. So yes, they're very important. Yes, they teach us a lot, but we must never forget that they were designed for soldiers, not civilians. And we need to look at the reality thereof as well. So in our next live, we are going to look at the evolution of survival kits, why we need to work out a decent kind of gear thing, and to use as our template the gear carried by the Vikings, because it worked and it covered more than just the tools of survival, but everything that you had with you, because ultimately you had to carry it, and they knew that.
They also had to survive like in the sea for probably a few weeks.
Not just that, because once you hit wherever you were Viking to, you had to live off the land for quite a few months before going back to your ship with everything you had got, and then sailing for more months to get back home. So, and of course you couldn't just stop in at the local store where you were, because as an invader you were not welcome.
So I wonder what kind of food they had, because they didn't have canned food.
They had very interesting food, including certain dried vegetables, some of which are still used today, and dried meats, cheese, dried fruits and nuts, quite a few interesting things that, yeah, you can still use those today, and in the Chthonic cultures are still used today, interestingly enough, which is pretty cool. And we will go into that, and we will look at all of that in the next live, because it's worth talking about. Things like, off the top of my head, chervil, very high in vitamin C. Licorice root, for a number of medical as well as sustainment sustainment reasons. While I can't personally stand the damned things because they taste like shite to me, parsnips, incredibly good, and you can dry them. Parsnips are a lot like a carrot. Carrots work too. And a number of other things. And of course, one of the big famous ones that the Portuguese came up with for dealing with scurvy. Did you know guavas are not natural to South Africa? They were brought by the Portuguese.
That's not natural to South Africa.
Doesn't come from Africa, it comes from America.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things.
They were
What I
brought
can imagine.
they were brought
Across
here.
the world.
Okay, so they were first brought from the Portuguese to Madeira. Vasco da Gama stopped off in Madeira on his way down and around, and he brought them from Madeira to Port Natal, which was initially the place where everyone stopped in South Africa before Cape Town became viable. And that's why they're all along the Natal coasts. They were brought by Vasco da Gama.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are obviously very high in vitamin C, which warded off scurvy. As you know as well, the British are called limeys because they use limes. And there was something else, I forget exactly what it was that the Vikings used, I'll have to look it up, which also high in vitamin C. We found and lost the cure for scurvy multiple times throughout history because apparently humans are stupid. But yeah, there you go. And it does work. You can find ways to ward off sickness for months at sea using the right dried fruits and nuts, the right foods, salted meat, salted fish, hardtack, pemmican. The Americans developed pemmican, which was their version. Other people had similar things-ish. But basically, in America, the pemmican is made by mixing meat and fruit and nuts and flour and stuff into a hardtack-like loaf, which you can then...
Probably be safer in the sea than in the Amazon.
Yes, but bear in mind you're dealing with different issues as well. One of the problems with the Amazon would be tropical diseases, which many explorers wouldn't have been able to manage.
So I pulled up some stats between humans and mosquitoes.
Okay.
I've only got data for 2021.
Yes, yes, yes.
So the amount of people that were murdered by other people through homicides and wars
Yes.
in the year 2021 was between 400 and 450,000.
I
Between
call
400,000
bullshit. I call utter bullshit because they haven't taken into account any of the small wars going on throughout Africa and other places. Absolutely not. It was higher. But do go on.
They do break it down. So in Africa, it's 176,000 victims. In America, which is also it's the entire America. So it's Brazil, it's Mexico. So that's 154,000.
Not including school shootings. Go on.
Yeah. No, it's I'm pretty sure they'll collect all their data in
Yeah, I know. In
America.
America, it's pretty accurate.
But in Africa, I mean, yeah, no. People that live in Africa, they don't like statistics. They like lies.
Absolutely. But yeah, so by and large, about what, 500,000 people worldwide? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and mosquitoes?
That's between 700,000 and 1 million.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the majority was actually malaria.
Yes, that I can believe. And the weird thing is, I didn't know this before, I learnt it when I started working the missions. Once you've got malaria, you never don't have it. So you can get a flare-up, even though you're not in a malaria area or being stung by a mosquito years later. Because I was the house medic when I was in the monastery. and a number of the students that were in the house studying with me were from around Central Africa and had malaria in the past. And they would get flare-ups of malaria. So out of the blue, suddenly they're sick with malaria. And I had to treat them. And it's like, there's no mozzies, how the hell? And as it turns out, once it's in you, it's in you. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are 5 other ones that they mentioned, but malaria is the highest one.
I imagine
I don't want to
the
mention all the other ones because I can't pronounce it. I'll pronounce.
dengue fever.
Yes, dengue fever, that's the second largest one.
Yeah, I would figure. Tsetse. Tsetse's probably on the list.
I don't see it. There's yellow fever.
Yellow fever, well, when I went into the military, the first thing they did was inoculate you against yellow fever and red fever. I don't know what it actually is in English. Rooikoors. Geelkoors and rooikoors.
Zika and some stuff I can't pronounce. Chikungunya.
Okay. Never heard of it. We've probably got different names for these things as well.
And here's one, I think it's just a whole bunch of viruses. They just popped into one stat, which is called West Nile viruses.
Oh, yeah. Famous. They're all very similar and they're all very nasty. So, yeah. West Nile viruses, absolutely. But yeah, yellow fever was a big one. And what is rooikoors in English? I don't know. But sleeping sickness, I would have thought would have been on that list. Unless it falls under West Nile viruses.
Yeah, well, if I just do a direct translation, it just says red
Yes,
rose.
red fever. So yellow fever is geelkoors, and rooikoors was the other one. It might be smallpox, but I just remember that they lined us up in a giant line, and somebody wielding a needle the size of a ballistic missile went down the line going stab, 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 and it hurt like an absolute bitch. And then somebody came after him going, what was it? It's not rabies, there's something else. It's one of the other common fevers or another. And they came down and went stab, 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 stab. And in the other arm, so now both arms were in absolute agony, and you got huge bruises because they took great pleasure in whacking that needle in, which was the thickest gauge possible. But yeah, none of us got yellow fever and stuff, so hey, kudos to the army for that, I suppose. Malaria was also in there as well. Kravuche virus. I've never heard of that.
It's a South American, Caribbean thing.
Ah, well, that explains why I've never heard of it. Or Orapuche. Okay. But a tropical type virus that will
It's
cause you
also
to fall
known as
over.
a sloth fever.
It sounds like their version of sleeping sickness, to be honest. Yeah. Basically makes you really, really slow and tired, and then you fall over dead.
Yeah, they've got the symptoms. Yeah, it's sudden onset of fever, severe headaches, chills, muscle and joint aches, nausea and vomiting, light sensitivity.
Yeah. And from what I understand with many of these viruses, it's not the virus that actually knocks you out. It's the dehydration, because you just can't keep anything down, and yeah, you sweat and sweat and sweat through the fever, and then you dehydrate and die from that. Which sounds pretty awful.
Yeah.
But yes, not survival things, because hopefully you've had all your inoculations and things prior to. You know, you don't want to be saying, well, they've just dropped the nuclear bang, and now we need to be ready to survive outside there, and oh, maybe we should get a few injections. No, too late then. You have to have it all done prior to. But nevertheless, as you say, useful. So yeah, mosquito nets are probably one of the most key survival tools in a tropical environment. And interestingly enough, one of the key survival tools that I was looking at, which I can certainly resonate with, which is huge in Florida, is mosquito repellent or insect repellent. And yeah,
I've
there
got
are.
spiders. In every room in my house, there's like spiders. I don't chase them away. I don't kill them or anything.
No,
I
nor
just
do I. They're great friends.
let them catch the flies and
100%. Totally with you on that. But yeah, if you've ever been in a swamp area, and I have, you get mosquitoes the size of chickens. They come in there and it's just like, and like they take one sip and half your blood's gone. They are scary things. So yeah, mosquito nets, they are a top survival item in Africa and in South America.
do you think we evolved to be able to hear mosquitoes?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. That's a very interesting question.
The humans that could hear them survived.
Yeah, it could be. I do know that ever since I became diabetic, apparently my blood is quite sweet. And funnily enough, my fiance tells me that ever since we moved in together, she has absolutely never been bitten by a mosquito. But I'll wake up with like 10 bites. She doesn't get bitten by mosquitoes, by fleas, by nothing. I'm the one. And she's like, this is cool. Me, not so happy about it. So yeah, apparently if you want to survive the night in a dangerous area for mosquitoes and things, take a diabetic with you. Hey there, Hamza. Good to see you. But yeah, that's the way around it. Let them be the victim. What's the old story? I do not have to run faster than a lion to escape being eaten by one. I just have to run faster than you.
Yeah, that works.
It does, it does. So there you are. We will come back and talk more on survival and what lessons we can learn for beyond just the kit, which really doesn't actually tell you nearly enough. It's useful, don't get me wrong. It's important, absolutely. But the kit alone will do nothing to save you. And we will have that tomorrow night, starting at 10 o'clock, as always. Same place, same time. For us in South Africa, at least. If you are from overseas, it might be a slightly different time. But nevertheless, thank you for joining us. It's been
Can we
awesome.
also look into surviving skills?
Yes, we
That
can. Particular skills that matter. We will do that. I'm just writing it down.
maybe basic stuff as well. Maybe hunting, fishing, making fire. I don't know.
Well, ultimately, the basics that many South Africans do all the time are the key ones. But there are a couple of little hints that make a difference. And I will go through all of those as well. So, absolutely. Thank you very, very much.
Cool.
Thanks to all of those who gave us some likes. They all matter.
Yeah.
I hope you have a wonderful evening further. And until then,
Enjoy your night. Have a good
sleep
night.
deep, sleep sweet, and sleep with one eye open, because you never know when you might need to survive. Cheers, cheers.
Nice. Cheers.